just getting some water. So this video is a bit of a montage of my frantic activity over the last couple of weeks. It's all due to that polytunnel not being ready, because I've got an army of plants that are destined for the polytunnel and instead they're having to get potted up. So let's have a look at what I've been up to getting ready for June over the last couple of weeks. So this year, normally I empty out my quad grows and get them all scrubbed and clean at the end of the season, but this year I came up with the idea of actually using them to grow stuff over winter. I wanted to have an experiment. I chucked a load of seeds. I just cut the tomatoes down and just really chucked a variety of seeds on them, lettuce, cabbage, you name it. And of course we had a really chronically cold winter and most of it didn't do very well, although I did manage to successfully get some cabbages over the line, which then come spring got hit by a cutworm, but those are the breaks. But early in spring I had better luck and I did successfully manage to grow on chard, beetroot. I've got spring onions in here. These are some volunteer tomatoes. So yeah, these will need a nice scrub, and mainly it's to make sure there are no crafty slugs and snails hiding in there. The bottom of the quad grows are absolutely caked in root matter from the tomatoes that have grown in here. If you're not familiar with quad grows, they're a wicking system. So this wicking material comes down through the pot, sticks out the bottom, and it's the bottom of the wicking material that goes into the big water reservoir, and you put nutrients into the water so that they get a constant feed, and that worked fabulously well for tomatoes. I also grew melons successfully in the system, and they were just a joy to grow because melons like a nice supply of water. They're quite a hungry plant and they were no trouble at all. I found even in the height of summer I was getting a good couple of weeks out of the quad grows before I needed to top them up. But these are pulling out, and under here I can see that I've got ants, so that's another thing. I shall have a good clean out. I shall douse it with a lot of water. If there's an ant's nest there and I flood out the ant's nest, they're going to evacuate. The last thing you want are ants in your greenhouse if you grow in things that are susceptible to aphids, because the ants will actually farm the aphids. They'll carry an aphid and put it on a plant that's close to the nest, and I believe the ants eat the sticky gum that the aphids create, and the ants will actually attack aphid predators because they want the aphids alive and doing well. So if you've got ants, best to try and move them on using the water in the nest, or maybe resort to something a bit harsher like a nip-on powder. So the nip-on sticks to them, they take that down to the nest. I mean, in my experience, it won't eradicate them, they'll simply move on. And to be honest, not very far. They'll probably just search and search very close to the original nest site, to a place that they think is dry. Underneath something is absolutely spot on, prime real estate for an ant, because of course it's protected from a heavy downpour of water, or my watering can. My plan is, last year, as you can see, I had these long ways on and it wasn't ideal because I couldn't get to the watering hole. This year I've got the polytunnel, so I'm not going to grow quite as intensively in the greenhouse. Tomato plants need quite a lot of maintenance if you want a successful crop. The first year I grew tomatoes, I was growing leaves, and if you want to grow a good crop of tomato, you need to do quite a bit of maintenance, and that means snipping out the suckers and also a bit later on in the year cutting down the foliage. So I'm having to have a bit of a move around of the tomatoes. So I'm going to move some of the peppers and chilies up onto the top shelf, and bring the tomatoes down onto the bottom shelf. So as I attempt to move these tomatoes out, I can see how precariously they're hanging on. They just don't have the root structure in these small pots to sustain the height that they've now reached. And you can you see that one there? It's bending over. It's a real shame, and they've already started to put out side shoots. Can you make that out there? Now this is what you need to prune out. It's probably easier when they get a little bit bigger. But if you let those suckers continue to grow, they're going to take all of the goodness from the stem, and you want that goodness to go to the trusses, which will have the tomatoes on them eventually. So that's a key maintenance job if you want a good harvest of tomatoes. Every few days you'll need to come and check your tomato plants and nip out all of these little buds. I call them the hairy upside down armpits. If you're a little bit confused about what you should be pinching out, you can see here's the leaf stem, and inside here, if you imagine it as an upside down armpit, anything that's growing in that armpit needs nipping out. Just spotted an issue with the pepper plants. Not sure how well this picks up on the camera, but can you see the little yellow dots on here? Not 100% sure. And I've got the same on this one here. And again there. Yellowing. As you start to see yellowing on the veins of a leaf. So you're seeing a mixture of yellow and darker green. That's generally an indication that they're hungry and they're lacking nutrients. Now this one has been potted on. This is Jack's Magic, and I am dubious in terms of the amount of nutrients that has in it. I think it's quite low in nutrients, judging by how quickly the plants are starting to go yellow. Well, I'm going to give them some chili focus. I've had a real game potting up, moving things about, cleaning things. My big issue is the polytunnel isn't finished yet, and I've got an army of tomatoes that are destined for that polytunnel. I'll show you. Right, we've made good progress, but it's just not ready. Entering through the back door. Yeah, we've got the framing in for the sliding doors, but life gets in the way sometimes, doesn't it? And we're getting the wooden edging around the bottom, but no cover yet. We've just got so much going on. It's high priority, but it's not top priority. Amazing. Usually either the wind gets them or the frost gets them, but everything, the blossom has been full on the pear, the apple and the plums. No frosts, no storms. It's looking good. Had a bit of an issue on some of my squash. It just hasn't germinated, but I've got a few bits and bobs to be going on with. Here is a patty pan squash, and I grew these for the first time last year. I was absolutely amazed at the little saucer shaped fruits, and they were really prolific, so I'm giving those another go. I grew a patty pan blanc last year, and this one's a Bennings green tint. I can't wait to see those. Got little buds coming. We've got patty pan squash. I've got cantaloupe, Minnesota midget. I've mentioned those in previous videos. Fabulous little tennis ball sized melons. Got a watermelon. This is a watermelon. I tried it last year. What variety is it? Blacktail Mountain. Tried it last year, only got one fruit and accidentally knocked it off, so I'm giving it another go. Most of these are from Real Seeds, open pollinated. Really love that company. This is a cucumber. That's a Burtpliss. Wonderful variety of cucumber, not from Real Seeds. Can't remember where I got it from. US variety that just does not go bitter. Paris pickling cucumber, another favourite. What's this one? Oh, Cantaloupe Melon, Collective Women's Farm, which is a new one from me, also from Real Seeds. Got a couple of those. Anyway, crying out for water. Fast forward almost a couple of weeks and let's have a look at what the greenhouse looks like now. The quad grows are in position and each is the host of a new plant. So I've got a Burtpliss cucumber there, next door to a Paris pickling cucumber. We've got some sweet peppers. Over there we've got a Sun Gold, one of my absolute favourite cherry tomatoes, and the great thing about growing them in a quad grow is they don't seem to split. Next to the Sun Gold we've got an Akron, another one of my favourite tomatoes, so just a good average red salad tomato. Go-to method for support is twine. It's just so easy. It's connecting to that bamboo pole along the top there. Those pots are quite small. I've grown peppers in small pots before and they do okay. They need a lot of feed and they're going to need support. But then I've got some in what I guess 7-litre pots, and that's just right. Absolute favourite kind of pot to put peppers and chilies in are these kind of pots. I buy David Austin roses and they come in these lovely, I'm not sure how many litres they are, but they're a lovely tall pot, perfect for chilies and peppers. These are all of the tomatoes that are destined for the polytunnel. So some are in small pots, a few are in final size pots, so they're in 10-litre pots and they can stay in those. And the ones that I've popped into smaller pots, I'm going to hopefully transplant into the ground. So after a really good couple of feeds, these have come on really nicely. The yellowing's disappeared and they're really growing off like the clappers. Before I say goodbye, here's a sneaky peek at my container garden. I call it my secret garden because it's a little microclimate tucked away behind the greenhouse and sheltered by hedging. There's pots of all sorts, carrots, garlic, lettuce, mint there, peas. It's all companion planted to try and fool the things like cabbage white butterflies and carrot root fly. Here's my container full of lettuce. It's a strawberry planter. I really love this little garden. It's really exceeding my expectations. I can't wait to see what I harvest from it. My advice is take a couple of photos or a video and then do the same at the end of June and you will be absolutely amazed. You're going to be absolutely amazed how rapidly everything takes off and grows during the month of June. Till the next video, take care. So here we've got a melon. That melon is going to need a lot more than 4 weeks of food. So I need to consider this in terms of where its final planting position is going to be. I can help that out by making sure I put something like some well-rotted compost or feed into the planting hole, and that'll get it off to a good start. And if my soil is rich enough, I could get a good crop of melons just from planting it into that environment. But what about if I plant it in a pot? So if any kind of container, as I mentioned, is a sealed unit, I have to think about, yes, I could enrich the nutrients inside there, but these are hungry feeders. How long is that going to last? I'm probably going to need to consider feeding this ongoing throughout the season in order to get a good crop of melons. And then there's water. The open ground doesn't dry out as quickly as a container. So what about a raised bed? Well, that's a bit of a hybrid, isn't it? It's a bit of a cross between a container and the open ground. Most raised beds, not all, but most raised beds have open bottoms. So this melon plant planted into a raised bed is going to send its roots down and can potentially still go out into that wider soil environment to get extra nutrients, moisture, everything it needs. Getting ready for June is about thinking about that now. Where are these going to go? How quickly are they going to grow? And what are their needs going to be? Not now, but in June, and then August, September, and so on. That is going to grow far too quickly to survive and thrive in this tiny pot. And if I put them into these bigger pots, they've got a better chance of holding on until June, when I can get them into their final growing position. This is a butternut squash. Now it's time to get ready for the mature growing season, which kicks off in June.